Hello, everyone. If you'd like to, as you join, if you'd like to hover over the bottom of the screen and open the chat function, and then choose the drop-down note there that says to all panelists and attendees, rather than just all panelists, then everyone will be able to see your note. Tell us where you are in the country, maybe what the weather's doing, and we shall all catch up soon. I'm just giving a few more minutes for everyone to join us. We'll start at 2. Thank you for being early. Yeah, I must admit it's beautiful in Wiltshire. This weather is just incredible. So we won't keep everybody a long time. We need to get back onto our sun loungers again very shortly after the webinar. But thank you very much for sparing the time. As you join, folks, if you'd just like to hover over the bottom of the screen and open the chat function, send everybody a note to say what's your name and where you are in the country. If you choose the all panelists and attendees option, then everyone will be able to read your comment rather than just all panelists, which only come to me. So thank you very much. Look forward to speaking to you soon. We're just giving everybody a few more minutes to join and hopefully we'll start at 2 o'clock. Speak soon. As you join, folks, if you'd just like to hover over the chat function at the bottom of the screen, that will open up the chat window where you can write your message about maybe where you are in the country, what your weather's like. No doubt it's as glorious as it is in Wiltshire. And just if you choose the drop down all panelists and attendees, then everyone will be able to see your message. If you just opt for the all panelists, then it'll just be me who sees it, which will be a shame. So do share. Speak soon then. A couple more minutes for all the people who've logged on to join us properly. Nice to see some people joining us from last time. I had a part 1 last week, and it will help if you've seen part 1 before, that's for sure. So thank you very much for joining in on part 2. If you are just joining us, please hover over the bottom of the screen. You probably know the drill by now. Open the chat function and the window will pop up. Then use the drop down to all panelists and attendees so that everyone will see your message and let us know where you are in the country and perhaps what the weather's like or what you've been up to this morning, if it's repeatable. And we'll catch up soon. I'm just giving a couple of minutes as we've got quite a lot of people in theory booked for this course. Just letting everybody fight with their technology. Speak soon then. So as you join, folks, we've got 24 attendees now. I think that we're just expecting another couple of people to join us potentially. I'll give them another minute or so. In the meantime, if you haven't already, please introduce yourself via the chat function. Hover at the bottom of the screen, open up the window, and the all panelists and attendees option on the drop down will make sure that everyone sees your message. Look forward to starting the seminar in just a few minutes. Speak soon then. Looks like most people are having some glorious weather, that's for sure. Okay, well, I think we probably should start now. We'll let the others join us as and when. They should be able to access without too much problem. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we're going to look at how we might develop on the things that we learned last week, and hopefully a lot of you have joined us for that, to actually start to create our displays and put them into practice. They're much more practical, albeit it's still theoretical, because we can't actually be in the same room to have a good play with some visual props and that sort of thing in real life. But hopefully you get a good idea, and we're going to give you some good tips and ideas so that you can put stuff into practice in your outlets when they eventually open, of course. So just wanted a bit of housekeeping. As we said, if you use the chat function on the all panelists and attendees throughout the webinar, then everyone will be able to see your answers and or your queries or whatever it is that you've got to say, because that's a great format for people to be able to just exchange conversation, etc. You'll notice that your mic has been muted, but you can communicate with me using the chat function if you have something particular, and Sarah from Tuco is watching the chat as it comes through, and we'll be making sure that we jump on anything that needs tackling straight away. Hopefully you'll have ease of access to the broadband today. There we'll be using, as part of this, we'll be using another app. So if you open this Zoom in an app on your phone, you may find that you won't be able to access the Kahoot app as well. You won't be able to have the two apps running side by side. So if you are able to grab somebody else's phone or to look at this Zoom on your browser on your phone rather than on the app, that would allow you to take part fully in the end of the webinar as well. There is a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen too, so you're welcome to put a question in there. And if we get a chance to tackle those today, we will, but I'll certainly come back to you with any answers to those questions afterwards, and that will be shared as part of the information. The webinar is being recorded as I speak, and the slide deck will be made available after the event in the next day. Also, it'll go up onto the Academy website. So if you go to the Tuco website and find the Academy pages, you'll find all the slides there, so you can refer to it after today. So if you are ready, we will start. Thank you very much for joining us. Oh yes, this is a bit of housekeeping, which we thought actually might be handy. Learning on last week, the Kahoot app can take some challenge to download, so we're just giving you a pre-warning about it. We will be using the Kahoot app, which you can download now or during the early part of this webinar. Make sure that you've got that, or open it in a fresh browser window on www.kahoot.it, and then that will be ready for when we actually run the quiz at the end. I'll give you a PIN number at the point when we start. There's no PIN number to enter at the moment. I was just, if you'd like to get those things in order at this point, then it makes sense. Saves the scrabble for information later. So I ought to say, I'm Judy Roberts, and I run a business called Right Product, Right Place, and that's all about making sure that you maximize the opportunity that's presented to you in terms of merchandising. Merchandising is sometimes seen as a bit tricky and hard to understand. So my mantra is very much that I will make sense of merchandising and share that information with you. So if you've got any questions afterwards about this or any further development that you want to do, please do get in touch via Sarah, Sarah McLaughlin from the Academy, and the contact details for her are in the joining instructions for today. So I hope you enjoy. Oh, sorry, that's what the Kahoot looks like. Yes, that's a good point. So today we're going to use the knowledge that we have built up about customer behavior from part 1 to create a fabulous customer experience. So now that we know what makes the customer tick a bit more, we're now going to think about and making sure that customer has this seamless flow through the space and finds all the things that we want them to buy with that strategic approach to product layout. So what we're going to look at is a quick run through a recap of the part 1, so that everybody's on the same page and we just have a refresher after all of the sunbathing or quizzes or drinking sessions or whatever you've been doing over the last week. We'll just get focused again on the key messages from the part 1. Then we'll look at how we use that information to create effective displays and some merchandising techniques that are worth building into how we put stuff on shelves, on counters, and how best to make the most of all of the learning from part 1. We'll also just go through some counter layouts, some typical counters, just to get your brains thinking about applying the knowledge to the various aspects. They are obviously, it's a 2D opportunity that we're looking at today, but it will give you a starting point for you to apply that knowledge to your own counter spaces when you get back into them. We'll have a quiz for about 15 minutes at the end, and there's a competition which will be running for the next 2 weeks after today, and that will involve you creating your own visual display at home with hopefully some stuff that you can find around the house. I've chosen some subjects that will hopefully be easy to track down, and then posting that on social media with the appropriate tags, and we'll judge that, and you can win a virtual consultation with me for your spaces when we all get back into using those areas, so we can decide how best to lay out a space for you. So just starting on the recap then, what we looked last time at merchandising, and we talked about the fact that yes, it is different to marketing. Marketing is much more about pulling people into a space, so you might be giving them a newsletter or a poster or communicating with them by email or some other method to attract their attention so that they become a customer. So once they're in the space, that's when the merchandising kicks in. It's all about that point of sale. It's that connection with your customer. Visual merchandising and a lot of human activity is very much dependent on the fact that first impressions count. So it's making sure that we make the most of that merchandising opportunity. Those customers have come in, and these days we definitely have to get the maximum out of every customer. So visual merchandising, you may remember, is defined as a whole, and bearing in mind that a lot of this is based upon very much a sort of long-term view of visual merchandising being very applicable much more to fashion, using colour, theatre, action, lighting and signage to influence customers' actions and decisions, so they spend more on the products that you want to sell. So thinking of a shop window, it's all about making it enticing and making people feel they want to be part of the impression that you're selling and that you've created with your merchandising. So we looked at the two main types of product, pull and push, if you remember. So the pull product is the reason that people will have come into your space in the first place. So it's a very important area for you to understand in your specific outlet as to whether you really have a handle on why people are coming into your space. If you know that, then you can use that to enhance how you would merchandise alongside that and associated products with that. But if you don't know that, then you're going to miss the right places within your spaces to put your additional impulse products. Impulse products come under the push product category. They're the things that we really want the customer to notice while they're with you, and hopefully buy, and maybe some new things or things that they weren't expecting to see. So the pull products, we need to, when we're thinking about where they should be in your spaces, they should be found without frustration, but not immediately. So if we're talking about supermarkets, it's the things like the milk and the bread are going to be at the back of the store, so that you're pulled right into the store. You've got a reason for getting to the back of the store so that you see more of their space. It's typically the lower on average margin things, but not always, because coffee is one of the top pull products and will also generate some great GP for you. Push products, higher margin on the whole, shorter shelf life, new supplier offers. It's all about ringing the changes and exciting your customer that they're coming into a reinvigorated space compared to when they came in last. It's very important that we don't appear to be drab and have this very samey impact and visual impact when customers come into a space. They can all choose to go elsewhere. So the boredom factor is something we have to counter. And of course that affects our staff as well. So having an exciting, vibrant, changing space full of push products that are exciting and communicate good messages about your business is very important. So it increases your market share and it makes the most of your customer base. You've got your customers and you're just continuing to entice them in. You're increasing the spend that they have with you. The dwell time, as it's called, within the spaces. More things are picked up, more things are tried, more confidence is built with your customers. So it very much improves the reward for your efforts, because you're putting products out, they're selling, because you know where to put them. Everyone's higher expectations. We talked about last time, the clients, the customers, the bosses, everybody wants everybody to do less with more. So making sure that we maximize the use of those resources is key. If you get it wrong, the opposite happens. Obviously, you get customer boredom, you get dropping numbers of customers coming in, and the gross profit and market share will fall. We talked about what influences buying decisions. We talked about the fact that the human anatomy and evolution will influence a lot of the things that we've become, that we know, the items like eye level is bi level. So eyes facing forward, a visual impact of about 60 degrees, a meter wide in front of us. We have two hands on the whole, and so that will allow us to only hold a certain number of things, particularly if we've got a phone in one hand, we've got to reach for a purse, etc. So making sure that we as caterers have thought about how to make the most of those hands is really important. We have one brain, which is usually full of everything else to do apart from food as customers. So we need to make sure that our messages as caterers are very simple. So the impact on our choices is that we as customers, humans, will choose the thing that's right in front of us, and those are called our hotspots. Must be easy to reach, not precarious in any way. It must be familiar and understandable. So obviously, if it's a new thing, we need to make sure that customers it makes sense, that it's an obvious connection to the product that they've come in for. So we talked about the fact that brands and can be that strong connection of instantly understandable, and making combinations of food so that you're making a lunch, for instance, so meal deals, and it all makes sense in terms of what you're asking customers to put together. We talked about good signage characteristics. We need to have directional signage to help manage queues. So if we've got a customer coming in for coffee, we need to make sure that they're pulled right the way through simply to find what they've come in for. And in the meantime, they will pass other items and displays that you're now going to be able to create that will attract their attention in the same way that supermarkets would. Make the messaging simple, the language that you use simple, particularly if it's a new product. So no wordy instructions or details. Make sure it's really crisp and the key characteristics only are relayed. Make sure it keeps up to date. As I say, there's nothing less enticing than a boring place that seems to have the same old. Otherwise, people won't bother to read the sign. It will become wallpaper, as I said there. We talked about using bright colours and good contrasts so that people can read it easily. Red, yellow, black and orange being the strong ones that will grab attention most strongly. Make sure that the font, any font that you use, is easy read from a distance. Sometimes red font can be really tricky if it's on the wrong colour background. It doesn't stand out from white in the same way that a black font would, for instance. I said not all in capitals because that can come over as very rude. And to make sure that you've got this consistency in style across all of your written materials so that it gives you that polished high street impression. So now that we've sort of recapped quickly on that, we're going to look now at how you can actually start to use that knowledge. So if we, I suppose one of the first things that you probably need to do when you think about your spaces and how to create an effective display is to think about your pull products and distinguish them from your push products, making sure that you're familiar with the 2 or 3 things that are key that your customers come in for. Maybe it's main courses, maybe it's your baguettes that are the crustiest around and much nicer than Subways, etc. Maybe that's what you're known for, and maybe it's your coffee, as we talked about. Once you know the detail of what customers come to you for primarily, you can start to make best use of your displays. So if we're thinking about creating a display, we might need to think about where we're going to put it and where is it going to be most relevant. So if we want to advertise something or maybe have a new product out or some activity coming up, you need to think about the most effective place that we should put that without it becoming clutter or getting in the way or distracting customers from what you actually want them to buy today. So we're going to look at a few things here. So the first one we're going to look at is a future event or special menu. So say you were going to be doing a street food market or for Christmas lunches, that sort of thing. You might want to think, oh, hang on, wait, why isn't it? Is it wake up? There it is now. So if we're going to advertise it, we need to make sure we're going to start to think about where stuff should be advertised at various times during the process. So in advance, you'd put it near or after the till. So it's a last sort of see. You don't have to advertise it too much in advance right near the front because you're trying to sell today's lunch or what goes with that. So make sure that this message is more timely then. The customer standing in the queue, they think, oh, that's interesting. I've got time to read that now. And it's not today. It's something that I need to bear in mind for the future. If it's the week before, you might want to have 2 displays. So you might have something still by the till, but you might then start to talk about it nearer the front of your spaces. On the day, definitely bring that display to the entrance and update the signage. And that doesn't have to be expensive because if you had an existing poster, for instance, that you've obviously spent some time and had designed and people are more familiar with it because it's become the brand of the event that you're talking about, you can then just put a strap band across it to make sure that it's really obvious that it's today and we're going to making it more of a song and dance about it. So that's for events. If you have a product that you want them to try now, then you'll be thinking about that at the end. Well, you're going to need to think about it appearing in a few different places. So this might be a new product that customers aren't familiar with, and as I said, familiarity is what helps people to feel comfortable about buying stuff. So we need to start talking about it early within the customer's journey, and then repeating it as they go through. So at the entrance, it should also be associated on the counters with the things it will go well with. So if it's a new brand of savoury popcorn, for instance, maybe you make a display of it at the front, and then you also put it near the deli bar. You might put it by the salad bar, because customers of salads might be more interested in a popped corn rather than a fried potato product. And make sure that therefore it's actually associated and you're making sense of it in a logical fashion around your spaces. It may also then appear at the till, and so that's sort of the last opportunity for customers to buy, obviously, from you. But by then, the customer's seen it 3 or 4 times around the space, and it's become familiar, and that's what you're trying to achieve. At any of those spaces, it must include the price, because it's a brand new thing. So therefore, we need to be familiarising people with that, because if there's any question about how much something is, then customers aren't going to pick it up. The other aspect is, if there's any question about what it tastes like, there's going to be, that's kind of a barrier to people actually picking it up. So make sure that you include some space for tastings, and maybe that's in that first display by the entrance, because that's going to make a much more impression as customers come in and think, oh yeah, I will try that. And then by the time they get down to the deli bar and they're thinking about which sandwich to have, then they've spotted the bag and they can easily take one. As I say, it starts to build that familiarity and confidence. Make sure that you build the cost, obviously, into the price that you set for the selling price that you set for your new product. Make sure that you've allowed for that wastage, if you like, the customer trial pieces of popcorn. Otherwise, you will find that you won't make the money that you expected. So then, once we've looked at those 2 things, how about a seasonal decor change? We talked, I think, last time about John Lewis being very good at making sure that their merchandising is very consistent throughout their spaces. And you will know when you go into one of their stores that it's spring, or that it's Easter's coming, or that it's Mother's Day, because everything is saying the same message. So make sure that if you're thinking, I'm going to be dressing this space for spring, and it needs to look different because we're post-Christmas, so we need to make sure that it's not just devoid of tinsel. This space needs to now say it's a new year, it's a fresh period. So make sure that that is repeated throughout your space in the hot spots, and useful also for the full product areas, because then your customers will all have seen that message. It must be obvious from the customer's first view of the area, so that they see, as they come in, they think, oh, this is nice, this is fresh, this is different, or what's going on here. So it's about countering the boredom. Take the opportunity at that point to update all displays and the messaging that you've got around the space. You might think that actually this is the time to update your brand or the font that you use for a new season. So make sure that everything is done the same. Tickets, shelf edge strips, and all of your notices, that they all match in terms of colour and font. So we've thought about, that's all the wheres, if you like. So now we're going to think about the how. This is perhaps the start of the scary bit, if you like, because you're actually going to have to put that knowledge into practice now. But this, first of all, you need to do some planning and do a bit of sort of homework and prep work first. So to create a display in a hot spot at the front entrance, for instance, you'd need, or by the till, if you were thinking about your street food event that's coming up, make sure that you've thought about some themed props that will bring that message to life. But it's not just a poster, but it's actually creating the ambiance of the message that you're trying to relay. So it's very visual. That's what it's all about. So you can easily think of some props in terms of food items that support the subject that you're talking about. Obvious ones, perhaps with the Halloween and the Chinese New Year, but these are all things that instantly will convey the message that you're trying to get across. So plan those props. Make sure that you've then also planned some clear signage, so that the customer can understand your messages fast. Simple language on that. Why do they need to know about it? Make sure that people see one of those catchphrases, don't miss out, or while stocks last, brand new, the things that attract attention and make people think, oh, yes, I'd like to have a go at that. Obviously, you need your key details, price, dates, and flavour if it's a new product. And then make sure that the signage ties into the colour of the display that you're going to create with the props that you've chosen, so that you've got this cohesive look to the space that you create. Okay, so that's all of the theory. Oh, no, sorry, I was going to say here, what you actually need now is the knowledge to build that display. So now we're just going to run through a few display sort types, most of which will be familiar to you, I'm sure, but you'll start to see how you might use them. So the first one I was going to talk about here is the symmetrical display. This is defined as a group which has mirror sides, is a mirror of each other on either side of a central line. The customer's eye line really ought to be, I'm going to just find the little pointers. Let me just find that. There he is. Okay, so the customer's eye line needs to be at the top of the pyramid. So if you've got the most expensive thing here, if you've got a lot of different products in this line, this display, then that would be where your key product would be. But even if it's all packets of crisps or all a new canned drink or a bottled drink or something, you still need to aim for the customer's eye line to be at the top of this pyramid that you've drawn. Make this, as we say here, it's very good for hotspots. So you'd have it at the front of counters. If the customers are approaching it from either side, so they're coming at it from this direction and they flow round either side, then the symmetrical style of this works extremely well. I'm just going to see if will this go on? That's it, lovely. Asymmetrical is more useful if you've got more of a sideways space. So it's a group that forms a one-sided pyramid, as you can see here. So it's higher on one side than the other. Again, the eye line is at the top, and here you've got a picture of Absolute Vodka, for instance. This is from Harvey Nichols in London, this picture, for instance. They're wanting to convey a message of Halloween. So all of their display spaces were all red and black. So they just use the same tones within their display here to make sure that the customer gets this cohesive view of the change of season that they're just walking into. But the key product is the top one here, so that's getting all the eye vision. So this is great if you've got a hotspot at the front entrance, or just to the front of a line of counters as the customer comes in. But the customers only go round one side of this space. You should use the angle, if you like, of the triangle to point in the direction that the customers are going to travel. So that's what I'm indicating here, that if you want customers to flow around here because that's going to take them straight to the Halloween display, for instance, or straight onto the next counter that you want them to go to, then they will subconsciously get this pointed message that will take them round. So it does help to direct customers around the space, particularly if you're putting in a temporary construction for the hotspot at the front door, as it were, the entrance to have for people to find their way around. So the third item on my list here is about repetition. So this is particularly handy for shelving and fridges. And obviously we fill a lot of fridges in our spaces, and we sometimes have shelves at the back of spaces that need to be filled without actually taking all the stock that needs to be dusted each week. So the repetition here refers to the fact that we have more than one line of a product positioned together for impact. So if you just had one bottle of a new product, it's fine on its own, particularly if it's got a nice bright label or if it's a brand that a customer is familiar with. But if it's a new one we want them to become familiar with, to put products either side of it so that it starts to have more of a presence on the shelf, the customers will be much more aware of it more quickly. Here, I'm just demonstrating, and you can try this in the safety of your own homes as well. When you have 4 canned drinks or whatever, if you take one to start with, and then you put a repeat of that either side, then you will find that your eye is inexorably drawn to the middle line. It's almost as if the ones left and right frame this central one. So we actually have a chance to focus on this. I'll demonstrate what I mean. If you have an even number of items, then the eye comes down into that central piece. So you're actually missing it altogether. So even though you have put more of the stock out, you'll get no more brand familiarization or impact from that, because the customer's actually going to look down the middle of this. So if it's a brand new product they've not familiar with, you haven't actually helped it. So always go with the 3. And if you can repeat on the shelf below in a very structured fashion, the neatness will always attract people's attention. That can look very powerful. Don't just have to have 3. If you have 5, you achieve the same central framing of this middle one. So if you've got lots of space, you can obviously have 5 of something. It will still hone the eyes in on that first central product. So customers have a chance then to read the label. Alternation is theory 4. So this is really good for filling these back shelves that I was talking about. If you really don't want to put much stock up there, maybe behind coffee bars, invariably we have some shelving put in that you don't want to have an empty shelf, because that just looks sad, and also it just encourages people to put the wrong things up like the antiseptic sprays and that sort of thing. They'll just get put away, if you like, right in the customer's vision. So having a more cohesive use for that space is much more constructive. So here we have a shelf, and what I'm going to illustrate here is that we start in the middle, and then we have 2 repeats either side. So what we've got here is a asymmetric triangle either side of a symmetric triangle. So that's the alternation bit. You've got asymmetric, symmetric, and asymmetric again. You notice that there's still lots of space between these products. So there isn't a massive amount of items on this shelf, but you'll still be conveying a message. The customer won't see the spaces. The customer will only see the products that you've put out. You can put a single product, and there was a time when there's a bottle of blue water called Tinon from Wales was everywhere, and that would just be in a strong row, and it was so unusual, it made quite a good impression. However, if you just put all of this product out, you've got to dust it. So the more stuff you have out there, the more maintenance you need for it. And also it kind of loses the impression after a while. So make sure this changes more frequently, because this can be very boring otherwise. So that would bring us on to looking at merchandising techniques. So using some of the knowledge that we've just gained, here we're going to illustrate technique 1, which is blocking or framing. If you've got some shelves in a retail space that you want to highlight, you're basically making this piece stand out. We're using the colour to attract attention. So obviously this particular brand is very colourful compared with the other teas on these shelves, for instance, and other packets of this, that and the other. but you're using a block of colour here and here on either side to really highlight this whole area. So it's, although what is strange here, and it's not a good example, is that we've got 4, 2, and then 4. So I would mark this one down on that aspect. If that had 3 in the middle or 1, then that would have been a stronger impact from here. But the principle of making some products that you want to stand out is very key here, that you have repeated it over the 3 shelves. The rhythm is the same. It's very neat. It would definitely attract attention. So that using that sort of methodology will make sure that your customers will see your premium products on your retail shelves. If you've got shelving such as fridges and you've got a load of bottles or granola pots, that sort of thing, to try and put out, you can, the most effective way of doing that is to put them in the blocks of 3 so that they sort of have room to breathe. You've got a gap between each block. Can anybody see that why that would make it easier for a customer to choose something compared to this one, where you've got the same amount of products, but they're all exactly lined up together? Has anybody got any idea about why you would do, if you say A rather than B? Easy to select, says Helen. Absolutely. So it makes them easy to pick up because there's a bit more space. Anything else that jumps out to anybody? Obviously, we've moved the colour around, so these orange and the red here aren't too similar, so they're not so confusing to customers. Breaks line of vision, says Steve. Absolutely, it does. That's true. Different colours differentiate products. Very good, Debbie. That's true, which is what I was just saying. So you've used the colours of the products to make it obvious. The eye is only drawn to one block. Yes, that's true. So you're looking at that central one each time. With the row of products here, you've got 9 products as a customer. You've come up and you've thought, are there 9 different products to choose from? So then you've got to try and stand there and just make a decision, work that out. Here, there's only 3 products to choose from. It's very visually obvious that you've helped the customer to simplify their choice. It's already categorized as Diana, absolutely. So you can see you've got a decision to make, one of 3 things rather than one of 9. So you've really helped the customer to be more speedy and act on impulse, particularly if it's a new product. If you haven't got masses of space, then you can differentiate your products by using either adding some height, as I've done here. So they're standing on a granite block here, or you might have a wooden crate that you might put them on, or you can actually put them in a crate. You've got them quite crowded together. You still use 3s, but because you've broken up the eye line, you've made it more obvious that there's just 3 to choose from. Using some kind of sticker like a new sticker or try me or special offer, that sort of thing will highlight and grab people's attention as well. If you've got a bit more choice, got more choice but the same amount of space, then you can use 2 of each to help guide people to the fact that you've got the 4 different products, but make sure that you've got more space between each of the types, as I say. But what would be perhaps more useful to do is to don't put everything out and actually ring the changes a bit, so that your customers see three products this week, so maybe those ones, and then the following week you bring out this one and maybe take off the one that didn't sell quite so well. So you're ringing the changes there and actually doing some customer research, if you like, in terms of fine-tuning your range. And maybe you don't need to get the 4 different flavors in next time. You can just sell the best. So maybe you've got a load of space, long bar, back bar space, which is just a sea of bottles. Again, that is fine because, to some extent, because people will be looking for their brand and pick out their favorite thing if they know what they're looking for. But if you really want to help people to make a decision, then make sure that you group the products. So all the vodka that you might have ranged together, you might have your gins all together, and make a feature of your house selection. If you've got some that the supplier gives you the best prices on, or is on special offer, or you feel supports your brand more strongly, more closely, then make sure you make a feature of those. If you give it some love on that first, in sort of in the center of the eye line, then the customers will focus in on that far more simply. A bit like we talked earlier about the alternation on a shelf. You've framed that house selection with what's around it. You've given it some space, and you've also given it some love. And your reputation is behind that selection. So a customer who trusts you and is familiar with your spaces will feel more inclined to follow your guidance, if you like, and therefore increase your profitability if those are your targeted products. So technique 3, clear communication. So it's very important that you've made these displays and used these techniques on all of your areas, but you must put some pricing on. People don't tend to go into shops and ask for pricing. If you think about if you're walking past a clothes shop maybe, or a lovely pair of shoes, and it's not priced, that's not necessarily the best thing for a shop as far as I'm concerned, because that would put me off going in if they're not actually upfront enough to tell me how much something is before I go in there. I'm not necessarily, unless I've absolutely fallen in love with it, going to go in and find out, because that means interacting with somebody and finding that perhaps I can't afford it, or it makes it more tricky to leave the space without buying something. So make sure your customers are totally encouraged to act on impulse. Keep those hotspots well stocked and tidy. We talked about this last week to some extent, where if you haven't got time to restock everything during the lunch service, make sure that the hotspots at least are absolutely on point, so that the customer is drawn to those and doesn't notice maybe that the rest of the fridge is empty, but the eye line is always looked after. Things facing the front, it's easy when you put a bottle in a fridge just to bung it in, but actually there's no point doing that if you aren't making the most of the effort that the branding company has put into it. Make sure those labels face the front so that your customers who are looking for a particular brand can easily find it. Also, it looks as if you care about the space, and therefore the products will be in date and they'll be delicious, so the customer's confidence is built. Make sure your messaging is easy. We've talked a lot about clarity. Make sure that the same font or brand logo that you have flows and is seen throughout your outlets. So maybe there's different ones in different outlets on a campus, but make sure that the message in each of those outlets is absolutely right for that space, and is totally consistent within that space. If you've got promotional messages to make, keep that to something that is a manageable amount. Obviously, the person on the till will need to make sure that they apply any of the discounts, etc., that might be happening, or meal deals, etc. But it also makes it less confusing for customers if you've really tailored that down to things that you think and offers that you think are relevant to your customers. It's not a corner shop. It's wanting to be much more specific to the group of customers that you attract and the profile of your customers. If you can make it time specific and day part relevant, so much the better. So you may find that you want to create a different sign for the morning, make sure that people are coming in for the 10% off with of a croissant, with a coffee, but make sure that that poster has gone later on, and you're building up for lunchtime, and you're telling the customer what it is that they can see at lunchtime. Maybe it is the street food offer, or maybe you've got a meal deal that you want to bring in and show people a showcase on that signage. Keep it therefore changed so that it doesn't become wallpaper again. Technique 4 is all about associated products. So this is about making sure that you're applying the promotion or the display that you're creating to an area that makes sense. So if you're trying to introduce the new popcorn flavour, for instance, we talked about that display potentially sitting near the deli bar, or perhaps in a crate or two by the grab and go fridge, or maybe by the salad bar, because it works for the salad bar customers. So that's where your display should be created, and then it will make absolute sense with a customer. It's almost irrelevant on the signage then. The customer starts to understand it straight away because it's in the right place. We talked last time about logical layout, so that the customer finds those things obviously. So it's not a sort of a bit of a sore thumb. It's not standing out as it being obviously in the wrong place. Make sure that those are actually following that logical layout as you flow through a space. Associated products, definitely make sure that anything that you can make as a word association or a sort of meal association in the customer's brain visually, that you take every advantage of those. And we talked last time actually about making sure that if you're going to do that, you've got these groups of products together, make sure that you've got bags or trays available to help customers actually make that selection in a self-service space. Otherwise, you're with their two hands or whatever it is, sticking stuff under their arms. It's really going to limit their capacity to take advantage of your special offers or of your impulse products. So there's an awful lot of chatting by me there. So hopefully you're still with me. What we're going to look at now is counter layouts, and I'm going to get a bit more feedback from you. So wakey, wakey. And hopefully you'll use the chat function to give me your thoughts on what goes where. So we're going to look at wakey, wakey computer. That's it, right. So the reason that we want to look at each of these counter spaces is because they will have an effect on your gross profit and the profitability of your space and the amount of money that your customers spend. So it will achieve better sales and gross profit. So how you lay out the space will impact that significantly. It makes it much easier for the kitchen to support the production of all of the items that you have on your shelves. If you're short stock of something and you want it to last right the way through lunch, don't put it right at the front of the show, if you like. It needs to be a bit further back. If you're wanting to get rid of something quickly, it needs to be right at the front, because that's the thing the customer will see first. But if you do want to help manage your batch cooking and the replenishment of products, make sure that you're not making it difficult for the kitchen to be able to keep up. Well, I'll talk about that actually when we get to the hot counter. There was a great example that I came across of that. Higher turnover means better presentation for the spaces, mainly because the items will look fresh. They'll be still replenished from the kitchen in a timely manner, rather than sitting there looking a bit sad. The customer service becomes more efficient because there's no queue. You've actually placed items in the right order to help direct customers in a managed process as they approach the counter. So the customer service does become more efficient. There is more interaction between the members of staff and your customers, meaning that that's a much more pleasant experience for everybody. Much less wastage. If you've prioritized one product that you want to sell more of, then and you prioritize your counter in the right order, you will be able to manage what's running out and what's being left over at the end of the day. Because the customer service is more efficient and the production are able to support service, you'll get less queuing and be able to spread the demand across the all of the counter space that you have. And also that means that the confidence of the customers will build up, so that perhaps they know that they don't have to come in right at the start of service to get the full choice. So now we're going to look at a hot counter layout here. I have a great example of a lady who came on one of my courses, and she had said that she was going to try something quite radical at her space and move the fried fish and chips from the first counter to the last counter. She knew that fried fish and chips on a Friday was a pull product, and having talked with me about what the impact of that was, she realised that actually she was making a real problem for her kitchen, who only had one fryer, by selling a lot of fish and chips, because she thought, well, everybody wants it, so we'll put it on the front counter and it's for everybody. The queue was huge, kitchen couldn't cope, everyone got very stressed, including the customers, because they were waiting. So by moving it and having a much higher gross profit and less labor intensive item like a curry on the front counter, something that sort of that was obviously pre-prepped and then just topped up during service, distracted customers, the customers that came in for their fish and chips, instead of automatically going to find the fish and chips on the first counter, they then were sort of stopped in their tracks, if you like, because it wasn't where they expected it. And some will then go and find it. As we said last time, if you use a product to light up a dark corner, the customers will go and find it because they've determined to get that bottle of Coke or whatever it is. So they went off and get the fish and chips from the final counter. But a lot of customers, alternatively, decided they'd buy the chicken curry because it looked absolutely amazing, and they might have come in for the pull product, but actually you've distracted them with something that's making a far better return. So it evened out the impact. The fish and chip sales were reduced, so that was much better effect on the gross profit because they had a fixed selling price, and the margin was not good on the fish, as you probably appreciate. So the kitchen was able to cope with the restocking for that counter, and the overall effect is that you get a much better gross profit from all of the space that you've used. So without further ado, can you tell me on this counter where if the customer's coming in from the left, which are the hottest spots on this counter using those letters that I've got? Where would you see the best place to put something you really want to sell? C or D? Yeah, that's good, because those are both eye levels. And the customer's coming at that from the front end. So, but C and A and D, yes, C, absolutely, yes. So if you're thinking about an impulse product, then C is perfect because it's in the eye line and it's something the customer hadn't necessarily come in for. But A is the front counter. So your hottest dish that you really want to sell, the chicken curry or the veggie chili or whatever it is you're making the most profit on, and that you can sustain production throughout service, should go on that first counter. So I think I've just given that away. What would determine which dish goes on the first counter? So from what I've just said, what determines what main course would you choose to put on that first counter? The margin, easy to make. Exactly, that's right. So it's something that you can cope with if it gets under siege, but it's going to make you the best margin for that space. It could, yes, it's push product, quite likely. So, and the gross profit is good, easy to stock. Yes, thank you very much. That's a good set of answers. So then we talked a bit about the upsells being the prime position being at C. So where else on the counter should our upsells go? D and E, exactly. Yes, B. B is less so, actually, Davina, if I may say, because that's the last thing that customers are going to see. So they're coming in from the left-hand side. So anything that's free that you've got on the counter, that's where they should go. So that's where I would put the inclusive items. So maybe you've got the ketchups or the tartar sauce to go with the fish, or whatever it is that they're going to get for free. Then that B point is the best place to put that, because you're not wasting that space. Where C, D, and E are perfect places for you to make an associated purchase with the product that's sitting on counters 1, 2, and 3, so that each of the customers who've gone to any of those counters, depending on what they're going to buy there, will have an impulse product that's associated with that. Okay, so salad island. So we're talking about something we're seeing from above here. So you're looking down on it, and customers can go they can flow around either side of it. And then we're assuming that the till would be, say, on the right. So they're going to flow around, circulate around the salad island, fill up their bowls, and then head off. So where is the hot spot on this salad island? See, absolutely. Anybody else? Yeah, so we all agree. That's lovely. So that's the first thing that customers see. So that is the key place to sell anything from and to set a scene for your salad bar. So where do the inclusive toppings and dressings go? The things that they don't have to pay for. D, absolutely, spot on. It's at the back side, if you like, of that space. So customers don't need to see that first, because they're going to get that free anyway. They're not going to pay anything more for it, and they'll probably take more advantage of it if you really make a big song and dance out of it. But as it's positioned at the back, you've then sorry, I didn't put the slide up. There you go. As you've put it at the back, it's like, oh yes, I'll just grab some dressing. You're not making a big thing of that. So where would you put, well, upsells, obviously we're talking about them being at the hot spot, but what sort of things would you use around the salad bar to sell as a good add-on with a salad? What items? Bread rolls could be, yeah. Bread fruit. Oh, bread or fruit, perhaps that is it, Davina? Yes. Croutons, yeah. Croutons could be, yeah. Cheap, bulky protein. Okay, so here on this C, the upselling products that we're talking about for C would be an ambient product, so that would sit on the end, and it might be something like the popcorn I talked about earlier, or it might be nuts or bagged fruit. Think about the fact that the customers who use this salad bar are potentially looking for more healthy options. So they would be keen to explore and to try the interesting products. I don't know, maybe some wasabi peas, or something like some biltong bites, or something that maybe has the protein in it, but is a very low carb item. So where would you put bowls and plates on this salad bar? I suppose it would depend if there were shelves or anything underneath which might take them, but how important are the bowls and plates to show those off? Where would you put them? Tricky to see. C might, yeah, you don't want to waste the C space, because C is where you're going to just sell your product, your impulse from. So I would definitely put, if I was going to do salad, oops, let's go, sorry, go back one. I thought I've lost my pointy thingy. There we go. Right. I would probably put plates and bowls here-ish, so that you've shown them from the front. The customers would see them. It may be that you repeat on both sides, because customers are coming from both sides. But you haven't taken away from this key space. which is where you need to sell items from. So that's where you put your things that you really want to sell as an impulse. You also don't want the first message that someone sees to be a pile of plastic boxes, because that's not necessarily saying the right thing about your business. And also, a great big pile of plates here can actually obscure whatever's behind it. So it's hard to make for the customer to understand what's going on behind if you've just blocked it out with a great big barrier. So make sure this is used most wisely as your perfect place. But yes, I mean, Steve was talking about there if it's a giveaway salad. Are you perhaps talking about having a pick and mix type item? You wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, it's tricky because you have to manage making sure that the food cost is managed. But what I'm talking about in C is definitely about the accompanying product, which is probably ambient and is the impulse item that you're getting customers to add onto their basket. So, where's that? Sorry, I think I've lost the bowls and plates. There we go. Right. So now we're going to look at fridges. As you quickly got a quick glimpse of this just now. We're going to think about, yes, and this is an example fridge and very much simplified in terms of slotting it into 15 areas. So we've got 12 shelf spaces, if you like, and then these are the sort of places in the well that the customer really mainly sees when they are right up against the front of the fridge, if that makes sense. So the customers are coming in from this side, and the eye level is assumed to be around about here. So I've got a poll. I think it might be easier to run this. Let me just find that for you. Where are we? Fridge. There we go. So I'm going to, there's lots of things, lots of items, lots of spaces here, so lots of choices. What I'd like you to do is to answer in terms of where you think the hotspots are. So as many as you like, tick as many as you possibly can. Have I? Yes, I have allowed you to vote. That's good. Okay, great. So has everybody voted? No, a few more to come through. So give us your best shot on where the hotspots. So the customers are coming from the left-hand side again, and eye level is that shelf where the dotted line is. The interesting thing is to apply the principles that we're going to learn here to your fridges when you get back to your spaces. As every layout and way that customers approach will then impact where your hottest spots are in that fridge. So I think we'll call that a day. I'm going to share the results with you. So what we can see there is that the biggest vote is for positions 5 and 6, which is absolutely right. That then we've got, on top of that, we've got 2 and 3 has not scored terribly well there. 8 and 9, that scored quite well. 7 is less obvious, folks, and position 4 is, although I've pointed at this is not what a customer would see first. If you think about approaching a fridge from the side, this row is obscured from view. So that's why it's really important for you to think about your spaces. The customer's coming at this one from the side. That means that, come on, wakey. That's it. All of the squares on the right-hand side of the fridge are what the customer will see first. This first column will be hidden from view by the side of the fridge or whatever else is beside it. So all of these hotspots are relevant as the eye-catching things for your customers to see. So if you, I think what we'll do is think about rid of the poll results. So those are the hotspots. Of that, can we decide which would have therefore the premium products in? So the customers are coming from the left-hand side. This line is obscured. So the customers is going to see these. Which of these red boxes would be the best places to put your premium products in? I'm going to launch another poll for you, if I can. Close that. Launch another poll. No, reload. Oh, let me just find the polls. Sorry, they've just managed to get rid of that. Oh, I need to stop the sharing, don't I? That's it. Right, sorry, just getting the technology battled into shape. Right, so out of the hotspots, where should the premium products be positioned? Tick all that apply. So a couple more moments for that. Most people have voted. Okay. Lovely. We'll end the poll in there, share the results. So position 5 is a clear winner. And position 8 and 2 are the other 2 key areas to sell your premium products from. They're the ones that the customer will see first. As they approach the fridge, 2, 5 and 8 are the ones that they will see with the strongest view. 3, sorry, let me just move that. 3, 6 and 9, 3, 6 and 9 are less visible. As you approach, you'll be drawn to whatever's in this section, typically, with these being seen sort of secondarily. Now, 4 and 7 are visible if you have glass sides. That's absolutely true, Ian. Yes, very good point. You would see that if there was the opportunity to have a glass, if there were glass sides on this. I suppose I'm assuming that this is a metal fridge, or it's in a bank of fridges as someone approaches it from the side. So, if therefore we're going to put our upsells into the, let's just get to stop share results. That's it, right? If we're going to put the upsells into our spaces, in that case, by process of elimination, we should be putting them into the other areas here. So this is making maximum use of your hotspot areas, because these are the spaces that you will see as you come in as a customer. I've also popped in here a box in front which has associated products in, so that your customers are seeing a logical connection there with what the products are in the fridge. Excuse me, so they'd be more inclined to spend a bit more and pick one of those packets up. Obviously, it needs to be priced. So if we're then, by process of elimination, we're thinking about the rest of the space being more about where you can put your pull or loser products, if you like. So if you've got a strong brand like Coke or Pepsi, or maybe you're wanting to put in there some branded yogurts or that item that perhaps hasn't got the margin that you would generate on all of your home produced products, then they should be put into the other slots, if you like. So these items the customer will stand in front of the fridge when they get there, but these are the products that they'll have seen first. You don't need, you've caught their attention. These will have been spotted, so those will add on to their baskets. But if they actually came in for whatever you've got in the blue section, they will still find those blue section items. I hope that makes sense. Fridges are tricky because sometimes the lighting is quite difficult within fridges. They're lit from the top, and as soon as you've got products on the top shelf, you lose all the light in the rest of the fridge. So they are more specific to site, but I'm obviously happy to give people advice on specifics, particularly if they win the competition at the end. So that's the fridges. Now we're going to look at till points. We've got a quick, it should be a bit more slick on this now. We're going to look at the till point in terms of the hotspot. So tell me where the hotspot is. The customers are coming from the left again. Where's the hotspot? Is it, actually, sorry, I should have A or B on there. Oh, look at that. Stars is, yeah, it's much more easy on a counter like this to pinpoint the hotspot. Can anybody tell me, actually, I'll do that in a moment. A couple more voting. So we'll just let those votes come in. Okay, we've got a resounding winner here, which I shall share with you now. Resounding winner is position A. So that's absolutely right, because this is the first thing that the customer will see. If we put stuff that we want to sell at B, what's going to be the effect? Anybody got any thoughts about? I don't know if you've tried it. If you've tried putting stuff after the till, what's the key thing? Anybody got any experience of trying to put a basket of confectionery after the till, or you already paid? Absolutely, Nigel. That's what I was looking for. So they see it after they've paid. Indeed, yeah. So they're much less likely to buy it. Indeed. So you've wasted that opportunity. So the best thing is not to use that space at all. You really need to focus on A, because that's the last chance you get to, sorry, that was my question, last chance you get to attract someone's attention. So now we're going to look at, therefore, the napkins and sauces that are free. Where would you think that they would go? I'm not going to do a poll on this one. Yeah, much simpler. Exactly. Well done, folks. Yeah, so we've got very clear winning space and a much more much less useful space on the other side of the till. So if we want to think about the items that were placed here, we need to think about they must be easy to pick up. They must be such a simple thing for customers to make their mind up about. There mustn't be any messing about. Must be easily wrapped. It's already wrapped. It's no mess as they pick them up. It is your final chance to sell them, and you might have been featuring them, as we talked earlier about familiarization, throughout all of your space. And they must be well priced so that they are seen as an impulse that is appropriate to the amount of money that a customer might be already spending. So sorry, if I just show you, what I've done is to demonstrate this, is to move the till across into the dead space. If you can, if you've got enough flexibility in the wiring and wherever the hole is cut in your granite top or whatever, if you can slide the till across to make the most of your selling space, then you've got area for your products to go in. And ideally, napkins and sauce sachets should be away in the restaurant. Customers already paid, and if you've got another table that you can use for that makes perfect sense. So important features for staff to check at the start of service here: price tickets. That's the first thing, that everything is priced with the correct information, and that the stock levels are good throughout service. This is your final hotspot. So don't waste the last chance of selling products here. So final counter to come through here too. The cake display. We've got just 3 products on this cake display, and this might be, say, Friday, where you might have filled up this whole space earlier in the week and you had loads of choice. But you can still make an impressive display by using the power of 3, giving the products height, staggered height. You've effectively created that asymmetric triangle. If we cast our mind back, so your eye level is leading, the customer here is being led up this hill to, as it were, to this wonderful pie that's at the top, on the top deck. And that's your star, potentially. That's the product you want to sell the most of. These are perhaps much more easily produced, whereas this one is a special product that you've cooked this, in-house, and there's only 1 or 2 of them that you want to get through. So you make a big feature out of this exclusivity here. Remember the power of odd numbers, making sure that you've got the three different levels, or 5 if you've got 5 different cakes, or 7 if you obviously have more earlier in the week. But again, we just talked earlier about less is more, and making it simple for customers to choose. So having it really clear as to how many things they have to choose from will help them focus their attention and make a decision. And of course, prices and descriptions, make sure that that's all very clear to customers. So this, again, often a cake is an impulse product, so it would pay you to make sure that the customer can make a decision quickly, particularly if it's like needing a gluten-free item, or etc. If it's really clear what they're buying, it would just help customers to make that purchase. So we have come to the point of the Kahoot. But first of all, before we go into that, I'm going to talk about the competition in case any of you have technical difficulties with the Kahoot and we end up with the fallout of numbers, which I know is a problem, or could be if you've got some Wi-Fi issues. So the competition, just to quickly run through this. So I suggest that you take a screenshot of this if you're interested. You will be able to win a free virtual merchandising consultation with me for your institution. We'll explore some ideas via video link to help you reorganize your space, increase your sales and your customer experience. Or if you've already had a battle with it after today's session, then we can do a review of that and take it on to the next level if that's the way that you want to apply it. So here's how. So over the next couple of weeks, we want you to create a visual display to represent one of the following topics. So hopefully you'll be able to find something to represent one of these at least in your home, to be able to create your own display. So Italian Special Day, Diwali, so that's the Indian Festival of Lights, and the launch of a new service, afternoon tea in this case. So if you would like to promote or focus on that, so then we're talking about the fact that that's a coming soon event. So post a picture of your creation by Friday the 12th of June, so 2 weeks tomorrow. I think that works out, on social media using the 3 tags @Tuco Limited, and hashtag Tuco Visual Merchandising, and hashtag Tuco Academy. That will help us to gather all your entries together, and we will then be judging that and announce the winner by Friday the 19th of June. You will be using the same tags, and I'm sure that Sarah will be doing something on the social media channels that you will be following with Tuco to put that information out there too. So if you want to take a screenshot at this point, then that can stay with you. But obviously these slides will be on the Academy portal after this anyway. So now we're going to do this multiple choice test, which is just a bit of fun to try and see what's gone in over the last 2 weeks, to see what information we've been focusing on. So as we said, we're using the Kahoot app. So download if you haven't already, or open that on your phone, or on a fresh browser window. If you've got that ability and you're looking at a phone or a laptop, make sure it's open on the browser rather than on an app. and then you'll be able to get the two things open at once. So I'm going to give you a PIN number in a moment, and then you'll use the coloured buttons which will show on your tablet or your phone that will correspond to the right answer that you choose from the screen. So you still need to be able to watch the Zoom webinar to get the question. The answers are done via the keypad or the screen of your phone. I think that makes sense. Okay, so let me just go and share the Kahoot with you, and we'll get that underway. We'll get a number for that. So this is going to be the number that you will need to put in, 944 7720. If you'd like to enter that into your newly opened Kahoot window or Kahoot app, we can get started. Put in your nicknames or however you want to be noted on the list here. Slightly less people than last week, so it's a bit less chance of getting to the top. However, there isn't a prize for this year, I'm afraid. This is a bit of fun to just see what we've taken in. So just wait for a few more players to join us, and then we will start. It can be a bit of a tricky one if you haven't got a very good reception. I hope that people are not finding that too problematic. If you can't get in, don't worry. As I say, it's only a bit of fun. We'll just observe, and you can play along just for your own satisfaction, even if you don't get onto the podium at the end. So, yes, I'm sorry about the music, Lisa. That is a bit of a pain, isn't it? Unfortunately, Kahoot are very proudly saying that you can't change it. Let me see if I can turn it off. Let me just see. Where will I find that in a moment? Can you hear me now? I'm so sorry. I'm trying to help you with the not so it doesn't get the horrible music in. But can I? No, I don't think I can do that now. Sorry, folks. Hopefully you can still work your way through. So giving the team something to do is definitely not the reason. So well done, the folks who managed to get in on that. So well done. I think it looks like Jen's our winner at the moment. So question 2, odd one out. Which of these aspects is least likely to work as a pull product in your cafe or restaurant? So we're talking about pull products are the main reason that customers might come through to you, and products are the items that we want to sell with those. So we've got 7 seconds to go. 1 second. So we've got various thoughts here. So interesting. Can of Coke, I would definitely say that was a pull product. So we're looking at the things that aren't pull products here. So the least likely item to be a product I would have said is cake. So that was the one that I plumped for. Coffee is very much a pull product, and meal deals are often a reason that people will come into your spaces. Whether you then convince them to buy something else is the part of the power of visual merchandising. So how are we doing now? So Michelle has pulled into the lead. Well done. And Up 4 places, Kath. Apparently, Kath, well done, highest climber. Number 3, which shelf will sell the most in a fridge unit, so should get most of your topping up attention during service? Top shelf, front of the eye level shelf, or the back of the eye level shelf? Which of those? Open. More seconds. 100% score. Well done, folks. That's great. Okay. So Liz has a streak with 3 correct answers in a row. Well done, Liz. And Michelle's still at the top. Why is it better to limit the number of choices you present to the customer? It's just to help them stock last longer, to help them make a decision to buy, to make it easier to stock count, or because it saves topping up the shelves during service? What's the best reason that you could think of to limit the number of choices? Help make the decision. Absolutely. It does save time topping it up during service, but that is not the reason for helping your customer to spend some more money with you. Right, how are we doing now on the scores? Michelle's still at the top, absolutely flying here. Lisa's the highest climber. Well done, Lisa. So question 5, what should you remember when creating a seasonal decor update? Update the colour, etc. How much together available? Throw it together with ready to buy. Point to remember. Update the season's colour throughout your space. Absolutely right. Well done. Nice one. It's something that will have much more visual impact as customers come into your spaces. So 10 people have got three right answers in a row. That's great. Michelle's still at the top. She's proving a tough one to beat, everyone. See how we do on the next, number 6. You're creating a poster to go with your display. What do you not need to include? A colour scheme that's echoed in the display. A what's in it for me hook, price or date, long explanations or lots of words. What's the least helpful item that you could include? Exactly that. So long explanations of lots of words are not what customers need to see on posters. It won't help it make sense. So 8 players have got 4 questions right in a row. It's brilliant. Michelle's still at the top. So we've got a couple more questions to go. Number 7, odd one out. Which of these is not an effective merchandising technique? Filling all the space on shelves, keeping signage, using the power of our numbers, using associated products together, filling the space with the products makes it much more confusing for customers to see. Definitely less is more. So how are we doing on the scores now? Michelle is definitely on fire today. 8 players have just hit their answer streak. 5 correct ones. Well done. So this scoreboard is looking quite stationary with these top 5 people. When you return to your site, how can you identify your hotspots? Stand behind the counter and look out. Stand at the entrance, look into your space. Sit in the office and draw a plan. Stand by the mirror and look at the screen. Where's the best place to pinpoint your hotspots? Blue answer, blue there. Yes, absolutely. Stand right at the entrance because you're looking at it from a customer's perspective, not from our perspective, when we're quite keen to stand behind counters and tills, but it's very much about the front entrance. What does the customer see as they come in? So tough for that one. Still got Michelle at the top though. So I think we're down to the last couple of questions. Odd one out. Which of these is not a top tip for excellent merchandising? So, pricing everything clearly, keeping everything the same every day, look after your hotspots, really associated items. Which is opposite of that is to make sure that stuff changes. It doesn't have to be every day, but if you've got the same customers over the course of a week, they will need to see something different the following week. So has that affected things? Michelle's still at the top. Absolutely flying. Roddy, back with an answer streak of 3. Well done. That's great. Not got you on the leaderboard yet. So last question, where would you display a winner product, i.e. one that generates a good return? A hot spot, a cold spot, a not spot, what spot? That's a really simple one for everybody to end the day on. Yeah, well done. It's definitely the hot spot. So that's the thing that's going to make you the most money. So how do we do? Podium, here's the result. Third, Jen, well done, Jen. Liz, 10 out of 10. And this is going to be, drum roll, Michelle, 10 out of 10 as well, but more points. So we've been very hard back there. Well done. And right behind them as well. So thank you very much for that. So I'm going to go back to the end of the merchandising part 2 and say thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. I have run over and I'm very sorry about that. Obviously, time to the minute, not very closely. There's a survey that the Tutor Academy will send out to you automatically. If you could fill that in, I'd really appreciate it. It just helps me to establish what you're interested in and how you might want to work on this further, and also for Tutor Academy to decide on future sessions that we hold. If you have any other questions, I think I mentioned earlier, please get in touch with Sarah, and obviously the details of the competition will be on the Tutor Academy website via these slides that will be there tomorrow. Anyway, hopefully we'll get lots of entries, and I look forward to seeing those very much. Now, I think we might have some, oh, sorry, I'm just looking at the chats. But thank you very much, folks. Thank you for coming, and you can get back onto your sun loungers now. Take care.